66, Talking Live, Javed Akhtar and Nasreen Munni Kabir in conversation with Sanjay K. Roy. This session is presented by our media partner, Dainik Bhaskar. Celebrated screenwriter, lyricist and poet, Javed Akhtar, and filmmaker Nasreen Munni Kabir's latest book, Talking Life, is the final edition in the trilogy Talking Films and Talking Songs. The book features an intimate conversation rooted in childhood pleasures, youthful rebellions, and mature relationships. The engaging narrative weaves together Javed Saab's enduring link with films, poetry, lyric, theatre, and beyond. The book will be unveiled at the end of this session. Javed Akhtar is a renowned poet, writer, activist, and lyricist with 5 national awards and 15 Filmfare Awards to his credit. He has been awarded the Sahitya Academy Award, Padma Bhushan Award, and Padma Shri Award, among others. Akhtar is the architect of the Copyright Amendment Bill passed by both houses of the Indian Parliament, and is considered one of India's 50 most powerful people in a survey conducted by India Today. Nasreen Munni Kabir is a London-based filmmaker and author who has written 20 books on Hindi cinema and made over 100 TV programs for Channel 4 TV UK, including Lata in her own voice, 1991, and Inner and Outer World of Shah Rukh 2005, Channel 4 Red Chillies. Former governor on the board of the British Film Institute, she continues to curate Channel 4 TV's annual Indian film season. She's the author of Zakir Hussain, A Life in Music. Sanjay K. Roy is the Managing Director of Teamwork Arts. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Javed Akhtar, Nasreen Munni Kabir, and Sanjay K. Roy, Talking Live, session 66.
Javed Saab, Nasreen Munni Kabir, welcome to the Jaipur Literature Festival. Neither of you, this has been the first time, hopefully it'll not be your last time, but welcome back, everybody. जावेद साहब ने इस किताब में ये चीज़ कहा है that when he was writing the dialogues, one of the most famous dialogue in many ways that he wrote was मेरे पास माँ है, and that's how the film started. Javed Saab, tell us about how this line came to your mind first and how the rest of the movie followed.
Not rest of the movie, but rest of the scene, you can say. That there was a scene where the 2 brothers who are on the other side of the law, they meet and there is a kind of a change of hot words between them. So when I thought of that scene, it was in the screenplay, which was written by Salim Saab and me, but then I had to write the dialogue of this scene. So the first dialogue that came to my mind, that the scene should end that the brother who is materially more privileged ask the other brother, what do you have? मेरे पास तो बहुत कुछ है. And he says, मेरे पास माँ है. मेरे पास माँ है was the first dialogue that I thought of. So I planned the dialogue of the scene that ultimately it will come here. You know, dialogue writing is also a kind of an orchestrization. I think most of you must have seen the film or you remember where the dialogue is. So before this one-liner, there was a long paragraph spoken by Amitabh Bachchan. I have this, मेरे पास ये है, मेरे पास बंगला है, मेरे पास गाड़ी है, मेरे पास बैंक बैलेंस है, प्रॉपर्टी है. वो जो बराज था, उसके बाद ही एक लाइन आती है तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है. अगर उसका भी 1 लाइनर होता या 2 लाइन होती तो ये लाइन इतनी उभर के नहीं आती. तो वी ऑर्केस्ट्रेट डायलॉग ऑल्सो कि कहाँ कौन कितना लंबा बोले, कहाँ कौन शॉर्ट हो जाए. तो इट वर्कड.
But Javed Saab, you yourself lost your mother at a very early age, and you talk about how you and your brother walked to the graveyard at night much to the astonishment of your uncles there because you wanted to see her.
Ah, I was 8 years old. My brother was 6.5, and somebody had told me that uh, they are going to cement that grave. They are going to make a pakki grave there, so they will have to open it first and so on. And somehow somebody gave us the impression that we'll be able to see her in the grave. So we walked, we children. And of course, it was not true. And the gentleman who was sitting there, oh, you are late. You could have seen her, but she's fine, she's all right there. And now these people, these workers have to go back, so they finished the work. You are slightly late. So we were disappointed, but after many years I realized that even if we had gone earlier, we wouldn't have been able to see her.
Munni, you know, you've sort of honed to a fine art the possibility of capturing every famous personality. You've done A.R. Rahman, you did a wonderful book on M.F. Hussain, now of course...
M.F. Hussain, Zakir.
Zakir, and of course now Javed Akhtar Saab. One of the things that's come through in the book is the empathy that people like Javed Akhtar have. And you bring that out in such a beautiful way, and I'm talking about, again, the chapter in which he talks about the loss of his mother, and you take that through the book. What is it in you that's able to eke out these kind of truths from people as difficult as Javed Saab?
I think the art of a good conversation that you will record is actually going deeper and not wider. So you don't ask many questions, you pursue with one question and you go layer into layer. If he said something on one day, I know little later there is another layer to be discovered. So you discover a person by layers, and I think it has a bit of, it's the closest to a therapy session, frankly, because what you are looking for is the psychology of the experience. The experience itself is just anecdotal, and it doesn't have much shelf life, to my view. But how you perceive it and how it forms your personality, that is interesting. And I have to say, it was the first book I did of conversations was with Javed Saab, which was called Talking Films in 1999. And my friends have asked me, why Javed Saab again? I think what is interesting about doing it, now 20-some years later, is to see how he evolved. And each person who I did a conversation with, whether it was Lata ji or Zakir Saab or Gulzar Saab or Rahman Saab and Wahida ji, they are all very different personalities. So you have to try and figure out what you can get from each one.
Is it also because of your deep understanding of Hindi films or Indian films? You've been curating BBC's Hindi series for about, or Indian film series for about 33 years. Is it that in-depth understanding that gave you an insight into people like Javed Saab?
I think it definitely helps, because the worst kind of interview is an interview which you do, which is research. So you ask them a silly question, and if you surprise people, they give you more. And if you don't do your homework before, I don't think they should waste time with you. You have to have some rigor in your own discipline. And once you get that, and that's from viewing a lot of films, reading a lot about them and so on. So it's a process.
Javed Saab, one of the things that many people in the audience may not know is that you were instrumental in creating The Angry Young Man and Amitabh Bachchan and ensuring that he got cast in the 3 seminal films.
I agree as far as Angry Young Man is concerned. That image, that character came through films like Zanjeer, Diwar, Trishul and all. But I will not say that we have created or I have created Amitabh Bachchan. You don't create Amitabh Bachchan, they are born. And they are great because of their talent, not because somebody has created them. He is an exceptional actor. I mean, I have all respect for the seniors, but the fact remains that, all right, so I'll dilute it a little. I'll say that he's one of the best 3 actors Hindi screen has ever seen, although I believe a little more than that. But perhaps it's not expedient to say that. So he was working in films the films were not working. And one could see anybody who has any understanding of acting could see that he is an exceptional actor working in a wrong film. The screenplay is bad or the direction is poor and so on. And we trusted his talent, which was, I mean, Himalayan, humongous. And we pursued our producers. You know, in film industry, you are as good as your last film. So because his last film for many years remained a flop film, so people were not, were rather cynical about him. But then somehow we managed, because our films had done, 4 or 5 films had done very well, so we had certain credibility. And through that, we pushed his name in our projects. But look at him, the kind of performance he has given in Zanjeer, or Diwar, or Trishul, or Sholay. What was the substitute? Who could do that? So we were right. All credit that we can claim is that we were one of those first people who realized that here comes a genius. So we gave him good roles, he gave us great performance. So it was...
One of the first Filmfare Awards that Salim Javed duo got, when they went up to stage, Times of India had only one statue because they thought Salim Javed was one person. Tell us about the relationship and how did this Salim Javed sort of duo come to dominate Hindi cinema and Indian cinema for such a long time?
You see, it's a strange coincidence. Yesterday I was signing books and one person in that crowd came, an old man, he was a journalist, and he gave me the pamphlet of that film, which I had written at the age of 20. And that is how I met Salim Saab, because he was playing the romantic lead in that film. The title of the film is Sarhadi Lutera. And the title role was being played by Sheikh Mukhtar. Not many young people will know about him, but he was supposed to be a he-man, a toughie, that time a big star. So Sheikh Mukhtar was the Sarhadi Lutera, and there was a young couple, romantic duo, that was Salim, and there was a heroine Farah. So Salim Saab se meri mulaqat wahan hui, and we became very friendly, and somehow even in that stunt film people liked my dialogue, and they said that if you can write this kind of a dialogue in this kind of a film, then if you are given a better script or better film, what will you do? And you should pursue writing. I had no idea that I'll become a writer. I had come to become a director, and I was working as an assistant director come dialogue writer, and at the salary of 100 rupees per month. So anyway, so that is how we became friendly, and then we kept on meeting. He also used to think stories. And I must tell you people, and that I have mentioned in this book also, that most of the stories that you have heard of Salim Javed are basically his ideas. Dialogue, me, but the storyline was always from him, and then we made the screenplay together. So that is how we met. Both of them were out of job, out of employment. We were totally jobless, and that is how we used to sit at bandstand or sometimes at Carter Road parapet and think of stories. And lo and behold, that same producer director who had given me work as an assistant and dialogue writer, he came to us and he said that I have a short story. Can you two develop it into a full-fledged screenplay? Because nobody has been able to do it. We did it. It was a ghost work. Now this ghost work was witnessed by a chief assistant of the particular producer, and his name was Sudhir Vahi. He has contributed a lot in our life. He recommended us to Sippy Films, and we went there. We gave an interview to cut the story short, and we were taken there. So that is how we entered the big league. And that is where we met Rajesh Khanna, who recommended us for Hati Mere Saathi. And then we made Sita Aur Geeta there, and then of course Sholay. And meanwhile we had a film Zanjeer Outside, and so on. So that is how there was not a day or a particular moment when we decided to become partners. It just happened, and gradually it grew into a partnership.
The Sippy film duo got 750 rupees a month, that was there, whatever. And Hati Mere Saathi was made because Javed Saab wanted a car and Rajesh Khanna wanted a house.
I had sold my car. I bought a second-hand car, and within few months I had to sell it back. So it's a very interesting story. And actually it is two-generational story, I must tell you. Mr. B.R. Chopra had made a script called Dhool Ka Phool and another script called Qanoon. These are only scripts, they were not made till that time. But the problem was, and he was launching his younger brother, Yash Chopra, in that film, Dhool Ka Phool. Now the problem was that no hero was interested in doing this role in Dhool Ka Phool, because the story was that the hero falls in love with the girl gets pregnant, and the hero ditches her and marries somebody else. So no hero didn't want to do this kind of a role. So Mr. B.R. Chopra called Rajendra Kumar, who was an up-and-coming actor. He said, listen, I want to sign you for 2 films. Qanoon, where you have a fantastic role, and this film. And I know that you are trying to buy a house. I'll give you enough money so you can buy the house. So he said, all right, on one side, Qanoon is very good. On the other side, I can buy this house. So let me do it. And that is how Mr. Rajendra Kumar was hooked into this film, Dhool Ka Phool. And he did that film. And he became successful. And he became a superstar and so on. But after almost 20 years or maybe more, he decided to sell this house. And Rajesh Khanna had given Aradhana and Do Raste, so he was up-and-coming actor. He had become a big star. That time, this house, which was ultimately sold perhaps a couple of years back in more than 90 crores, that house was worth 4.5 lakhs. So came a producer from the south, and he gave him a huge signing amount, according to those times. Then Mr. Rajesh Khanna read the script, and he got panicky. He came to us, he said, listen, this man has given me 2.5 lakhs as signing amount, which is unheard of. I have given this money to Mr. Rajendra Kumar, and I have promised that within 3-4 months, I pay the rest of the 2 lakhs. And I'm buying that house. But if I work in this picture, my career will be over. If I don't, I'll lose the house. So can you people help me and rewrite the screenplay? I'll convince the producer that's my responsibility. So he said, right. Again, somebody was signing a film and had signed the film and wanted to justify it because of that same house. It was the same house. So we said that, all right, we read it was not good. So we said that we will rewrite it. But except for the hero and 4 elephants, we'll change everything. He said, change anything. I will convince him. So we wrote Hathi Mere Sathi. It was a picture that was made in Tamil, the original script, with MGR. The picture got made, it became a super hit, and our version was so different from the original that the same producer made this version with the same actor in Tamil, with MGR. And again it became very successful. So that is how Hathi Mere Sathi was written.
Munni, Javed Saab in the book talks about how mad he's been, or how mad he is. How difficult is it to pin this kind of madness and put it into a book form? What is it that you need to do as a writer, author, a person who understands people to sort of, delineate the madness of a genius like Javed Saab?
The thing basically is that the subject, whoever it is, and Javed Saab in this situation, has to be ready to reveal themselves as much as they choose to. And once they start revealing themselves, the things that are most dominant in their personality will emerge. They do emerge. And so I think COVID had a lot to do with it, Sanjoy. It was 2 years where Shabana ji and Javed Saab were in Khandala, and they were quite isolated from their usual madness of life. Their phone ringing.
They were gardening.
Yes, yes, and people coming, and all of that was not happening. And I think it was a time that he was reflecting a lot on his life. It was quite a time, and I think we started this book 3 years ago. it stopped and started because of COVID. And finally, when this happened, it was Westland Books who backed us and stayed very, very loyal to us because it was taking so long. And it was a lot of work and a lot of toing and froing because I live in London. And you could see he was ready to look at his life in a different way. He was ready. And only then can you draw something out. If somebody is not ready to give, you can't put a gun at their head.
But is it the madness that makes him such a genius?
I think the madness, I would say in Javed Saab's case, is more his imagination. He has a very big imagination, and that is why he writes the amazing scenes in Sholay or Diwar. He sees very big pictures, and in his life, I think there is madness, but I think it comes out in his work.
Javed Saab,
At the moment, I'm feeling like a thing being discussed by these two people. Anyway.
Javed Saab, was it the fact that your parents first named you Jadoo
Yeah.
that made you this magician with words?
I was hearing what you were saying. You see, I mean, psychiatry believes that if you are creative, whether you're a painter or a sculptor or a poet or a singer or a composer, whatever, and creative, let's use it in real terms. So by creative, sometimes we only mean people who are doing some kind of art. No, I think man who invented gramophone was a creative person. Edison, Henry Ford, who decided to put the automobile on a conveyor belt, is a creative person. If you do something which has never been done, if you think of some new idea, you're creative. Otherwise, most of the poets are not creative. They emulate or imitate other poets, senior poets. Most of the painters are not creative people. They emulate some painters. It is not creativity. So creativity should be taken in broad sense. Why anybody would need to be creative? The very fact, psychiatry believes, the very fact that you want to be creative means something abnormal about you. You are not well adjusted. You are not happy with the present circumstances or the world as it is. You want to create something else. Imagine, let's take Thomas Edison. He had a neighbor also. He thought, to begin with, that I want to capture sound. This is the idea of a madman. He made the gramophone later, accepted. But this very idea will come in the mind of an abnormal person. His neighbor would have never thought that. He would have thought, let me buy that plot also. The prices will go up, and so on. A real sense, thinking of capturing an idea. Okay, I will capture sound. So whatever is there, I mean, a poet sitting in Garmi of Bombay and sweating profusely, writing about Chandni Raat. So you have to be abnormal. So the very fact that you are creative, it means there is something wrong with you. But remember, all the tigers are animals, but all the animals are not tigers. It means all those who are mad are creative. No, sorry. And sometimes people think this is the shortcut to creativity. Let me get mad and I'll become creative. No. So yes, obviously there must be some eccentricity, some abnormal attitudes. You'll find it in every person who is in creative work.
But Javed Saab, your own life in this book reads like a film script. It's not that you were born with this huge wealth and you had this easy life. You struggled at every point and you had a very difficult relationship with your father that comes through in this book.
Now, shall I tell you something which is perhaps not very politically expedient or socially expedient? If you make the list of people who have contributed something, sorry for this humility, I'll keep myself out of it when I'm talking of great people because I'm not a great person. But I'm talking of great people, people who have really contributed a lot, who have been geniuses and very creative and so on, and achievers, big achievers. If you make the list, there'll be hardly 2% people who had good relations with their father. You make the list. Either their father died at a very young age, or they had some problem with their fathers. You see, it is not possible to grow under a big tree. So either you move away from the tree to grow, or the tree falls. So वो थोड़ा सा तो मैंने भी कोशिश की कि शायद इसमें ही कोई बात बने, जैसे some people become mad to become great. So my relationship with my father was not a normal one, that's for sure, but it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody has his or her share of bruises, hurts, disappointments, and humiliations, and so on. Everybody has a quota of this. So it is nothing unusual that I got all this. There is nobody in the world who grows up without scratches, without bruises, without hurts.
Munni, do you feel that Javed Saab's experience, lived experience, and he said in the book, the past in the past, did that contribute to making him what he is and creating in many ways the dialogues? Finally, he wrote the dialogues for Gabbar, right? The dark, angry, the other side, the evil that coexists in each of us.
I think definitely it's there, but I think it is also at a very subconscious level, and it comes out when somebody gave him a situation in a film, and then he would be able to, pops into his head. I don't believe creative people actually sit down and rehearse what they're doing. It either emerges or it never emerges. I remember talking to so many people who are very creative, and they find it very difficult to analyze how they get the idea, because the idea just pops into their mind, and that in a way is a fountain of creativity. Question is, for some people it will last very long, many years, and some people have a short fountain. So this question of balance, I think every experience will inform your work, whatever experience you have. For example, if I talk about myself, I went to boarding school, and I was very fond of the discipline of it and the rigor of it. My friend Meera Nair, who's sitting here, she knows because we've worked together as well. And honestly, to me, there is nothing more pleasurable than working, and it's come from boarding school.
Javed Saab, recently you won the Richard Dawkins Award as being a rationalist. And yet when you were a kid, your grandfather used to give you 1 anna or 8 annas to be able to memorize a para from the Quran, which when your grandmother found out, she was really very angry.
Yeah. I'll tell you this story, but before that I must tell you, because you use words like dark and evil, that I must make an honest confession. I thoroughly enjoy writing villain's dialogue, whether it's Gabbar or Mugambo or any other villain. Why the villains are so fascinating if you portray them well? Why children fell in love with Gabbar, who had no redeeming factor in it. He didn't have an unhappy childhood that made him what he was. He was evil because he was evil. But why did children like him so much? He was loved by children. I hope you remember this. You see, what we admire about these villains is their total lack of guilt consciousness. All of us have a little villain somewhere inside our mind, but then we have a consciousness that this is bad, and we feel guilty even thinking of it. Leave aside doing it. He has no such problem. He's a free person. He's a law unto himself. Take the children, you take them to the zoo, and you tell them there are so many beautiful birds there, and you have deers and does, and then they have a tiger who is a man-eater. Believe me, the child would like to go first to see this man-eater. He will not be interested in birds. Why? Because we envy the freedom of the villain. We envy the freedom of a man-eater tiger. Somewhere, we are scared of him, but at the same time we admire him. Man, he can do anything without feeling guilty. And look at us, we feel guilty all the time. He has no moral binding. This power, this freedom is admired by normal human beings. So that is why when I write that, so I feel lighter. I'm not carrying the baggage of morality or a baggage of decency, nothing. I am only looking how cruel, how sadistic, how perverted he can be. So that you enjoy. That as a writer, for a minute, you share that freedom with the character. And that is very, very pleasurable.
दूध नहीं पियोगे तो गब्बर आएगा, याद रखना. Talk about the rationalist part of you.
You see, so many people ask me, why are you an atheist? And many people are not willing to believe it because perhaps it doesn't suit
Because
them.
he doesn't believe in guilt or afterlife.
You see, they ask me, why are you an atheist? I say, it's very simple. I'm an atheist because I think. That's all. If you will think, you will be an atheist. But you don't think, that's the problem. Most of the people, 99% people, die in the religion in which they were born. There is no development at all. These are the opinions that they have been given to him or her when the person had no discretion. The person who was vulnerable was a kid. आप एक काम कीजिए, एक बच्चे को रिलीजियस एजुकेशन मत दीजिए. जब वो बच्चा लड़की या लड़का 18 साल का हो जाए, कहता बेटा ये 10 रिलीजन है, दुनिया में देख लो, सबको पढ़ लो, बुक्स हैं इनकी, जो तुम्हें अच्छा लगे वो मान लो. मैं बताऊं कौन सा रिलीजन वो लेगा? नन. उसको आप ब्रेन वॉश करते हैं जब उस बच्चे के पास चॉइस नहीं है, वो उसकी बोन्स में चला जाता है. It is not easy to become an atheist. It takes at least 3 generations to get cured.
Munni, one of the...
But I must tell this story to you. I have great respect for my maternal grandmother because she was a totally illiterate person. She was the only daughter of a big zamindar. And when she felt uneasy doing mathematics or anything, the zamindar said, I'm not going to give this trouble to my daughter. After all, she's not going to do any naukri. She's my daughter. कोई ज़रूरत नहीं बेटा पढ़ने को. तो उनकी पढ़ाई बंद हो गई. She could not even sign her name. She was so illiterate. She could not speak simple Hindustani. She could speak only Awadhi. I have never lived in a village, but I have written songs in Awadhi. I have written dialogue in Awadhi, thanks to my grandmother. She was totally illiterate, but extremely politically conscious. She had a servant who would, in the morning, take an Urdu akhbar, Qawmi Awaz, and read the whole newspaper to her. And she would listen, sitting, वो छालियाँ काटती रहती थी, सुपारी और सुनती थी. Then she had opinion, गांधी जी ने ये कहा ये बिल्कुल सही है, और वो जो ये कह रहा है वो ठीक नहीं है, और गांधी जी सही कह रहे हैं, तो ब्ला 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 उनका अपने एक वो था. इसलिए कि उनके जो बेटे थे, वो पॉलिटिक्स में ज़्यादा he was nearer to नेताजी. तो अपने बेटे को भी समझाती थी कि तुम ये छोड़ो, तुम गांधी जी के पीछे जाओ. तो उन्होंने उनके बेटे ने किताब लिखी है कि my mother had much more political expediency than I had. तो anyway, तो मेरे नाना और नानी are the only people in my extended family whom I have seen praying. And praying like what? Thunder, lightning or rain, they would pray 5 times a day. उनको बीमार होती थी मेरी नानी, बेड में लेट के नमाज पढ़ती थी, लेटी लेटी, मगर मिस नहीं कर सकती. They were the only people. Then my nana gave me one ayat and said, I'll give you 8 annas. 8 annas was a little fortune for me that time. So, agar tum ye yaad kar lo, maine yaad kar li. I got 8 annas. Then he was giving another and promised me another 8 annas. And my illiterate nani lost temper on the husband. And she said, you have no right to teach this religion to him. If he would have been with his mother, do you think she would have taught him? If he would have been his father, who is underground now, he would have taught him. They would not have taught him this. So you and me have no right because the orphan is living in our house, doesn't give us a right to teach, impose a religion on him. And that was the end of my religious education. Can you? Acha, I was not happy that time because I had lost 8 annas. But after many years, when I look back, I realized what kind of a sensibility the woman had. So my mama, who was her son, who was almost 92, 93 when he died, he was in the parliament for 15 years. He was in jails during British time many times. He has spent some 8 to 10 years in different jails and so on. So I told him this story. अच्छा मेरे हाथ कांपते हैं, मेरी मैटरनल साइड पे सबके हाथ कांपते हैं, मेरे बेटे के भी हाथ कांपते हैं. तो वो सिगरेट वो कांपते हाथों से पी रहे थे. 93-year-old man. तो मैंने किस्सा सुनाया. हाँ ठीक कह रहे हो. बिकॉज भाई देखो हम लोगों में जो भी थोड़ी बहुत इंटेलिजेंस आई है वो माँ की तरफ से आई है. हमारे फादर तो काफ़ी डम थे.
Munni, when you capture somebody as sparkling as Javed Saab, what do you have to do to yourself? Do you remove yourself from the picture?
You kind of have to, but actually, when you're doing a conversation book, it looks very easy. But actually, the conversation itself goes in Hindustani and English. When you hear somebody speak, if we recorded what we were saying, you would have to edit it, you would have to rewrite it, you would have to shape it, you would have to have a timeline. So there's a lot of writing involved with these conversations. It's not just dictaphone. And you have to actually be very visible in as much as you have to think through your questions. You have to be invisible when it comes to if he wants to tell a story, you allow him to tell that story. That's when you become invisible so that you do not interrupt the flow of thinking. And if you can manage that, you get more out of it. But please believe me, conversation is not dictaphone.
And is your experience, because I think you subtitle most of the big films today in India, that experience and that knowledge of being able to translate or subtitle from Hindi or any other language into English for an international audience and make sense of it, does that come in handy?
Absolutely, Sanjoy. I'm glad you brought that up because it's one of the big pleasures because
She's just doing Pathan right now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Let's hope you all like it. And I feel that with subtitling, within 2 seconds, 3 seconds, because that's the length of the dialogue delivery and the shot, you have to say something clearly, good English, and not lose the cultural reference or the situation. You have to translate, but not flatten it culturally. For example, if you take an Italian film, nobody will translate pizza or risotto. But so in Hindi films, you don't have to translate lassi and, I don't know, roti. So you leave those things. Don't flatten things culturally. It's a great pleasure. And I just came back from Chennai, where I was working on PS2 with Mani Ratnam. I don't speak Tamil, but I work with 2 translators. And it's been a superb experience, superb, because Mani sir is absolutely clear what he wants. So the clarity of the director is all important when you're subtitling.
I cannot thank enough that what Munni is doing in subtitling, and she has really taken it to some other level. Otherwise, I'll tell you what was the standard of subtitles in our film. Our film, Haathi Mere Saathi, had a dialogue. It was subtitled. And believe me, I am not exaggerating it. So there was a dialogue, देखो ये हाथी हाथ धो के मेरे पीछे पड़ गए. And नीचे लिखा था, look, these elephants are behind me after washing their hands. That's a fact. That's a fact.
It was the first film that I
After
ever saw.
washing their hands. हाथ धो के पीछे पड़ गए.
Javed Saab, tomorrow Hari Prasad Chaurasia is coming. We're releasing his autobiography. And he talks about Silsila. Ki aap dono ne in that one room, one day, you created, you finished the song, Dekho Ek Khyaab.
We did. But you see, I started my career as a film lyricist in 1981. And I was not willing at all. I didn't want to write film lyrics. And Mr. Yash Chopra, who was a very dear friend because we had done a lot of work with him, he was a very persuasive man. He just did not leave me. I put strange conditions, he accepted everything. He said, I want you to write the song for this film. So ultimately I did. Now, when I was going, I was very nervous. We had to meet at about 10:30 in the morning, that I'm going to meet Shiva and Hari, two geniuses, and they will give me a tune. Yes, I write poetry, but will I be able to write to the tune? And of course I made a mistake, but they covered it. And I'll tell you that. Now, time has gone by, so we can afford to make it public. As a poet, that I learned later, and I never made that mistake again, but that time I did. हम मीटर ध्यान रखते हैं, ये है मीटर इतना, तो यू हैव टू राइट वर्ड जो इतने को फिल कर दे. मगर मीटर के अंदर मींड, मुर्की, कर्व्स होते हैं, तो आपके वर्ड ऐसे होने चाहिए जो उनके साथ चले. उसका मुझे अंदाज़ा नहीं था. सो एक्चुअली आई रोट देखा एक ख्वाब तो ये सिलसिले हुए. मीटर सही है, ट्यून में गड़बड़ थी. क्यों? ट्यून ओरिजिनल ट्यून वॉज, और अभी भी आप गाना सुनेंगे तो जो प्रीलूड है उसमें वही ट्यून है, फिर गाने में चेंज हुई सर. वो ऐसा था, अब ये जो रा रा रा, ये लिए वर्ड मेरे नहीं आ सकते थे. मैंने तो लिख दिया, देखा है ख्वाब तो ये सिलसिले हुए. सिलसिले नहीं आ सकता, वो कर्व नहीं आएगा. तो बट दे loved the word so much that they slightly changed the tune. और उन्होंने सीधा उसे कर दिया, देखा एक ख्वाब तो ये सिलसिले हुए, तारा निकाल दिया उन्होंने. वो then I learned I never make that mistake again. तो ऊपर जो म्यूज़िक है वो वही ओरिजिनल ट्यून की, मगर जब गाना शुरू होता है तो उसमें ज़रा सा ट्यून चेंज हो जाती है. तो मैं तो बड़ा रिलेक्टेंटली करने गया था काम. 10:30 बजे गया, 5 बजे तक गाना हो गया. तो मुझे बड़ा मज़ा आया. चंद दिनों बाद वो किशोर दा और लता जी ने रिकॉर्ड किया, तो सामने गाना परफेक्ट सुनने में आ रहा है, लोग वाह वाह कर रहे हैं. अब वो होता कि हम डायलॉग लिखते हैं ना, 2 बरस बाद वाह वाह मिलती है जब वो पिक्चर रिलीज़ होती है. यहाँ इंस्टेंट प्रेज था. तो ये काम मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा. देन आई स्टार्टेड डूइंग इट.
Javed Saab, what comes first, the music or the words?
Most of the time, the music. Most of the time. But in some special moments, our music directors are very talented people. You give them telephone directory and they will compose it. वो बात नहीं है. But at the same time, this is the tradition, because perhaps most of the directors in yesteryears also were not Urdu, Hindi familiar. They were from Bengal, they were from South. So they could rely more on the tune. Okay, the tune is right. Now let the word come. तो वो वर्ड को इंडिविजुअली जज करने में डरते होंगे शायद. So it has become a tradition. Most of my songs, not all of them, but most of my songs are to the tune.
I'm going to open it up to the audience. I did want to ask Javed Saab, you know, he is a bullshitter, and I wanted to ask him about his first meeting with Faiz Saab, and that's a whole story. But maybe we should just, आपकी इजाज़त से audience को चले जाए पहले, and then we can come back.
मैं एक बात आपको फिर और भी बताऊं. जब ये शुरू हुआ तो I got frightened that I thought that it is going to be a condolence meeting of my mother's death. तो बहुत कुछ morose और बहुत tragic, talking to an old orphan, कुछ ऐसा लग रहा था मुझे atmosphere. मगर वो हो गया. ज़िंदगी में हर एक के कुछ दुख होते हैं, परेशानियाँ होती हैं. But what is interesting that when I was young, I never allowed myself to think of her. Now when I grew old, and there is so much of distance, day before yesterday, 70 years of her death were completed on the 18th of January. 17 years, because she died in 53, 18th of January. And I never allowed myself to mourn over her or to be a sad, lonely child missing her. I never allowed myself. When now I can think, because there is a distance, but when I think of her, I find it very awkward. And you know, it's strange. She died when she was 36 years old. 2 days back, I have become 78. So am I thinking of a woman who was 36 years old at the age of 78, who is younger than my children? Magar, I still miss her, and I still feel she was my mother. It is strange, actually paradoxical, but that's how life is.
So I'm going to take, we've got very little time. I'm going to take 2 questions from here, 2 questions from here, and we'll ask Javed Saab and Munni to answer them. So in the first row, yeah, and the lady with the glasses. Anybody from the back? Any questions from the back?
So you mentioned that 3 heroes. One was Amitabh. I'm dying to know who is the other 2.
Okay, let's hold that question. Dying to know the other 2. At the back, the gentleman with the beard. No, okay, you take the question. Do it quickly.
So, do you speak about atheism quite a lot?
Atheism, okay, and the gentleman in the beard at the back, just stand up, please. Yep. Just hold on, mic's coming to you.
My question is also about atheism, about Richard Dawkins. Why do you think spirituality doesn't fit into the rationality? Because you have said about spirituality, so I want you to clarify.
I think spirituality is the second line of defense of religious people. When they know and they develop a conscience because of the education that they cannot defend traditional religion, they, instead of leaving it, जैसे अल्कोहलिक जब शराब छोड़ते हैं तो बियर पीने लगते हैं, तो it is, spiritualism is the beer of religious people. And what is this hocus pocus? I want to relate to the cosmos. But is cosmos interested in relating to you? And what do you mean by cosmos? Neptune and Jupiter, they are the cosmos, and of course other stars. So why are you thinking that Mars, Venus and Neptune will be interested in you and will be thinking of you, and they are so happy that you want to relate to them? What is the meaning of relating to the cosmos? These are words. These are just words which don't carry any meaning. I want to relate to the cosmos. Go ahead. How will you do it?
Sorry, and the other question was, who are the other 2 actors who you referred to?
Dilip Kumar and Balraj Sahani.
Question here.
Hello. Hi, sir. So my question is on translation. You were talking about translations. So I'm
Just step back, step back, step back.
So I'm especially talking about poetry. So do you all think the work of translation should be treated as original work of translation instead of the translation itself? When we treat it as a mere translation, then we are comparing it directly to the original work.
Tumufsan versus Red Samadhi.
Well, I think the translation is very complex because nowadays many people are bilingual, so they actually read the original and then they look at the translation. I think translation should not go away very far from the original, but the question really is, if you take film songs, now if you try and make them rhyme, and it doesn't work on paper. So if you hear something spoken, you can say it works because you hear it, but on paper things don't read the same, so you have to bear that in mind. In terms of novels, of course, translation, we know all the classics from Russia, from China, from France in translation, so it is a hugely important aspect of writing. And as Sanjoy started off by saying that there's more and more people translating Indian novels and Indian books, and it's superb that this is happening.
Javed Saab, last word. You want to own a plane and a yacht.
That was a honest moment of confession, so I did that, but I will not own it publicly, that I have such mad ideas. So, but I do have, I fantasize everything. If I tell you what all I fantasize, you will commit me to some asylum. But that is how my mind runs, what to do. I have another world of in my imagination, and I'm doing very well there. Yeah.
Nasreen Munni Kabir, one of the things that I said to you when I read the book, I said it needed an introduction and it needed a summing up, an ending. This is not going to be the first and the last biography on Javed Saab. What is it that you discovered that has stayed with you through the conversations for 3 years?
To be very honest, I like this form because if you do a biography, a traditional biography, you lose the voice of that person. And I don't know how many people here are biographers, but you know that fact-checking is very, very difficult in India. You don't get fact, so you basically ask the person and you rely on their memory more than you can rely on fact. So I think this form suits my way of thinking because of documentary filmmaking, and I think it's a good form because you maintain the voice of the subject.
Ladies and gentlemen, Javed Akhtar, Nasreen Munni Kabir, talking live. Would you like Shabana ji to come up and also help release the book? Can't hear you. She's saying no. Come on. No, Javed Saab in between.
We would like to thank Javed Akhtar, Nasreen Munni Kabir, and Sanjay K. Roy for this riveting discussion and a thoroughly entertaining session. Please join me in giving a huge round of applause to the one and only Javed Akhtar, Nasreen Munni Kabir, and Sanjay K. Roy. We thank Dainik Bhaskar for their support. And Javed Akhtar and Nasreen Munni Kabir will be signing their book at the right side in the kiosk. The books are available at Full Circle, so please go and grab your copies. But please note that they will be only signing the books titled The Talking Life and Daira and Dhanak. The books are available at Full Circle. Do you love telling stories? Global entertainment platform Pocket FM has a wonderful opportunity for you with